Hello and welcome to another episode of the Australian Small Business Show. Christy Lee, how are you today?
Hey Matt, I'm great. How are you?
Well, I'm fantastic for a couple of reasons. It's winter and I love winter.
My worst,
It's
least favorite season, but anyway.
I own 100 beanies, so I get to rotate them. And if you're listening to this episode, the Australian Socceroos are either about to play or they've played their first World Cup game.
Depending on what time you're listening to it.
That's right. So
Yes.
if you download this and you listen to it first thing Sunday morning, Socceroos are about to play. If you listen to it after 2 p.m. on Sunday, I think they're playing. So I'm very excited for the next month of the World Cup.
Yeah. Big soccer fan Matt is, so I'll be prepared not to see him for a while.
Oh, it's on at good times too. So it's not like late nights, it's on during the day. So it'll be basically working and looking at TV
Okay.
for a month.
I'll be staying in my office. Excellent. What are we talking about today?
Well, I'm gonna hand over to you today because I want to talk about some changes that are coming in that impact small business owners that employ staff.
Exactly. We're going to do a few episodes, listeners, on end of financial year relevant stuff. So today is, I guess, the HR edition of end of financial year because there's been a number of changes in the Fair Work space. But we'll also do some episodes on, a general end of financial year checklist. I'm going to talk about increasing your prices, which is something that this is the time
Yep.
of year where a lot of businesses are thinking about that. And of course, the cost of doing business is going up. So there's going to be a few episodes that are quite timely around end of financial year. And we are kicking off with all things HR.
All right. Tell me what's happening.
Okay, so over to me then. So, look, there's a few changes that are going to impact all businesses, small businesses who employ staff, particularly from the 1st of July. And this is not an unusual time of year for us to see changes in this space. The 1st of July, every year we have changes coming through from Fair Work. But this year is certainly no different. So, the first thing, and probably the biggest one that's going to impact most businesses, is the increase in all of the award minimum rates of pay. So, what happens is every year the Fair Work Commission review the national minimum wage. It's actually part of the Act. It's a process they're required to go through. And they look at whether the national minimum wage really reflects what should be the case. And they always increase it every year. And they also look at all of the awards and the minimum award rates and look at whether they're going to apply the same or a different increase or any increase at all. So they handed down their decision in early June, and the national minimum wage will be increasing to $26.44 an hour or $1,004.90 a week. It's almost a 6% bump in the
Wow.
national minimum wage. So it's not insignificant. And the Commission, in their decision, did cite all the things that you would expect: the increased cost of living,
Yeah.
inflation and CPI increases being at about the 4.8% to the June quarter, the uncertainty thanks to the conflict in the Middle East and the increase, things like petrol prices and the flow-on effect that's having. So all of the sensible things that we would expect them to consider have gone into this. Unfortunately, this does, though, put more pressure on businesses,
Oh,
particularly small businesses who pay staff. So national minimum wage increase is one thing, although there's not many people who are covered or are paid the national minimum wage. I'll try and get the exact stats for you. But where this will impact more people is in the award increases. So the Fair Work Commission announced that from the 1st of July 2026, all award minimum rates of pay would be increasing by 4.75%, which is a pretty
wow.
decent increase.
So if you're looking at we're going to get to the episode in regards to increasing prices.
Mm,
You know that these numbers you're talking about are one of the factors that you kind of think about when you're increasing your prices. There's other factors as well. So that means small business owners are kind of starting at 5% in terms of they're increasing their fees. And
increasing the cost of doing business for sure. And look, we, as we've shared on the podcast before, we're a blended family with a bunch of teenagers, and they're pretty happy about this because they're all getting pay rises on the 1st of July. So, we see both sides of the coin, but it is just more pressure on business owners. And now, look, a
yeah.
lot of us have to pay our staff well above award minimum just to keep people, but and whilst we don't have a legal obligation to increase their rates of pay if they're above award, they kind of start to ask questions about pay rises on the back of these decisions as well. So it does have a bit of a flow-on
Right.
effect.
So if you've got an agreement in place that's well above um, minimums for an
Hmm.
award, and you've negotiated that with them. So this is probably, yeah, it's probably something they see this in the news and
Yep.
they go, well, if they're getting 5%, so I want
Uh-huh.
I want a 5% as well.
100%. Yeah. So, that's going to be a factor that business owners are dealing with as well. Along with this increase, all of the allowances in the awards will go up by some percentage. We're yet to see the exact flow on of that. It won't be the exact same, but they'll all increase, and allowances are costly as well.
Is this that that big document you've been working through over the last couple of weeks?
Actually, this is not the big document. We've got two big decisions from the Commission in the last couple of weeks around very specific industry sectors: the health professionals sector, so those covered by the Health Professionals and Support Services Award, and the social community home care and disability support services
Right.
industry, SCADS award. If you have staff covered by either of those awards, the changes coming are incredible. And if you're not across them, I guess I would just recommend following me on socials at the very least, so you
Mm.
know when I'm going to be presenting some info on that, because 1st of October is going to be an absolute catastrophe, I think, for some of those businesses. So I'm helping my members get ready for that now already because
Yeah.
it is coming.
Okay, so that's the wage increases. Now we've also got changes to super coming up as well, haven't we?
Well, we've got payday super coming up. So that means from the 1st of July, every time we pay our staff, we have to pay their super. So they're moving from the current model of, most of us pay quarterly superannuation contributions. So the January till March quarter, we're paying the superannuation before the 28th of April in a lump sum. That's gone. So from the 1st of July, if you pay your staff weekly, you need to pay super weekly.
Yep. And I think there's been changes to the clearinghouse too. The ATO's shutting down the clearinghouse, aren't they?
Yeah, which I actually thought was really baffling, to be honest with you. And I'm not an accountant and I'm not a bookkeeper, so I, talk to accountants about this myself. I thought that was a strange decision because one of the big impacts that Payday Super is going to have is it's going to increase administration around payroll, because
Yeah.
that process of having to contribute into all of your employees' different super funds, when you don't have a clear, like the ATO clearinghouse was free, when that's
Yeah.
gone, you're going to have to do that manually unless you
Yeah.
find another alternative, of course. And
And you've got to have it in the super funds account within 7 days.
correct. Yeah, that deadline's really important because the time that you process it from your bank account, it might take a couple of days to land in that super funds account. So it needs to be clear in the fund within 7 days of the payroll being processed. So if you process weekly, that's every single week. If it's fortnightly, it's every fortnight. It's absolutely going to add an administration burden. And I think what small businesses particularly want to be just conscious and aware of is you're going to have to start payday super on the 1st of July, but you're also going to have your um, April to June quarterly super payment due by the 28th of July
28th.
in the same month. So it
So,
may put a pinch on cash flow for some small
but
businesses.
again, but like you said, like everything we're talking about today is going to flow onto the episode on pricing because you're talking about the payroll department having to do things, um, 4 times as many as they were doing it before.
Yep. And
Uh,
potentially in a more manual way than they were doing it before with the removal of the clearinghouse, is
yeah,
my assumption about it. So all of this is going to put a pinch on things. And I mean, to give you a bit of context about how many employees are impacted by those award increases, it's about 21.5% of our workforce, so
yeah.
2.8 odd million Australians. I would hazard a guess that a lot of those are employed by small businesses, your mum and dad cafe
Well,
that's
yeah, that's
employing our
right.
15-year-olds and all of those things. So, it is probably disproportionately represented by small businesses at a guess.
And this is something, and it might not impact many people, but if your employees have self-managed super funds,
Mm,
you need to get them to check and make sure that the bank account that they
mm.
have inside the SMSF can process this within the 7 days. Now, it probably will impact a small number of people, but so things like your credit unions, rural banks like that, certainly reach out and find out because you're going to be responsible as a small business owner, not the recipient.
Yeah, and that is something that a lot of accountants are a little concerned about, that the bank accounts that people have got set up, particularly for self-managed super, but generally the super fund bank accounts, we're not in control of how they process.
No.
So, if it is going to take longer at their end, my understanding is that the ATO have said they're going to be somewhat lenient in the first 12 months around that 7 days. But my understanding is, if it's day 8 while you're getting your process sorted, fine. But if it's day 14, not okay. And they will be coming after you. And I'm hearing the fines are really, really high for not complying
Right.
with payday super. And we've chatted offline a lot about the ATO's current approach, and it's
Pretty aggressive, yeah.
pretty aggressive. There's a word for it. So, yeah, that's another change. And I think, yeah, just for our listeners, being really conscious that you are going to have to start payday super at the same time you're going to have a quarterly super bill as well,
Yeah,
and you really want to be preparing to have that cash at hand
that's right.
to be able to make those payments.
And also think about, your pricing as well.
Yeah, well, and pricing's a bigger discussion because you're not going to just suddenly put up your prices unless you're in an industry like, retail where that's very easy to do. For a lot of
Yeah.
us, I'm still working on 2024 prices with some clients, so that's how far I am behind on that.
Now, what else have we got?
So we've got also some changes to the parental leave pay scheme. So this is the parental leave pay that is administered by the government for the most part, although in some instances they will give the money to the employer for the employer to process it. If you've had anyone had a baby in the last couple of years, you'll be aware of this scheme. But we're seeing more changes to that on the 1st of July. So the amount of leave that someone gets is increasing to 130 days, which is 26 weeks. So 6 months of parental leave pay. Now, I'm careful to call it parental leave pay rather than paid parental leave, because that's a different thing that some corporates offer where they actually pay.
Right.
So this is an amount that's paid at the national minimum wage. It's not at the employee's current pay. And we started to see super contributions added to that from last year as well. So they've been increasing this scheme. Look, from my perspective, this is great. We need the government funding this. We can't expect particularly small businesses to be
No,
funding this.
definitely not at the moment.
But of course, when they expand the payment, it might encourage people to take longer on parental leave than they otherwise would have.
Which that's going to put pressure on small business anyway.
Could put pressure on, yeah. So we're seeing it go from 120 days to 130 days, so an extra 2 weeks effectively. And there are also some changes as to how both parents can access this. So this has started to become more and more flexible over the last few years. So the other parent now has 20 days of the leave that they can access. That's an increase.
Is this at the same time? You can both be
There's
off?
different rules. Yeah, there is some what we call concurrent leave that they can access, and it will depend on your circumstances around that because it does matter whether you're a single parent, and there's a whole range of factors that contribute to this. But the second parent, for want of a better term for them, will now have access to 20 days, not 10 days, and at least some of that will be able to be taken concurrently where both
Right.
parents are accessing that leave at the same time. So that's for babies born or adopted from the 1st of July 2026. So if the baby is born in June, then they're under the previous amount, which is still generous,
Yeah.
110 days, I think it is from memory. But this is for babies born or adopted from the 1st of July
Right.
2026.
So this might be a little bit controversial, right?
Okay.
So I'm a small business owner.
Hmm.
Um, I'm seeing that because of this change, people are taking more time off,
Potentially. Yep.
up to 6 months.
Hmm.
Am I allowed to ask the question at interview?
No, absolutely not. No, 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 no.
No,
Please,
but
listeners,
well,
don't do that.
hear me out though. That's a big impact on a small business owner.
Yeah, but pregnancy in and of itself is what we call a protected provision, i.e., you
Yep.
can't discriminate because someone is either pregnant or has children. So you can absolutely not ask them at interview if they're planning to get
Just
pregnant
thought
and
I
have a
just thought
child.
I'd ask.
Jesus. No, you can't. Us very skilled interviewers have ways and means of
Right, finding out.
locating information like that without necessarily asking the question. But no, you cannot discriminate on the grounds of pregnancy or being a parent, just the same as you can't discriminate on the basis of a disability. So it falls
Right.
under that same piece of legislation and law. Look, whether it will increase people's appetite to take longer leave, probably not. They'll probably,
Because they're probably on a higher wage than the minimum anyway.
almost, yeah,
Yeah.
almost all of the times they will be on a
Yeah.
higher wage than the minimum. And that, of course, they still have, if they're eligible for unpaid parental leave, which is that 12-month period we're all very familiar with, and most people are eligible, but they've got to have been with you for at least 12 months. There's a few rules in place. They may, they still have the eligibility to take that full 12 months and they'll get the government's payment if they're eligible for 6 months, and the rest would be unpaid. So just a caveat on all of this, there is eligibility criteria that people need to meet to access this.
Right.
So you're going to want to check servicesaustralia.gov.au. If you're an employer with someone who is, has come to you and disclosed that they're pregnant, and you're wanting to get ahead of it and find out what's going to happen, you can jump on servicesaustralia.gov.au, paid parental leave scheme, and have a look at it there, just so you understand it. But it is up to the employee to make the claim for that
Okay.
payment.
Cool.
So
So,
it's not, the onus is not on the employer.
or is that the last of the changes we need to look forward to?
Look, they are the changes from the 1st of July, and we'll keep an eye on those. We do have some other things in the
Yeah.
wings, so to speak, around
Yep.
contract provisions and those restraint of trade clauses that we all like to have in our contracts that are actually legally very difficult to uphold anyway, but they're looking to ban those. No timeline on that yet. I suspect we will see more. All of the changes the government is rolling into place are there to protect the worker, and
Yeah.
unfortunately, generally speaking, are not great news for us as a
And
business
yes,
owner.
imposes on us, doesn't it? Now, there's been a lot of advertising I've been noticing, and when we were planning this chat, I brought
Mhm.
up a few things that I thought we'd talk about because I've seen, advertising around changes, and you're telling me some of those changes that some providers are putting out there to scare small business owners have been in place for ages.
I'm getting increasingly angry about the scaremongering by some, if I'm honest, large HR providers telling people that things like workplace flexibility is
Flexible, yeah,
being.
that's the one. Because I thought I'd found something really cool to talk about today because it's not obviously my area of expertise. So I'm coming in with the tightening of the flexible working arrangements.
There has been things that have been in place for years and years. The right to disconnect, workplace flexibility provisions have been in the Act from the beginning. They were expanded a couple of years ago. And don't get me wrong, do I think they'll be expanded further? Yes,
Yeah,
100%. Like Victoria have decided to go a little rogue and make their own little state-based rule where, and I've got to check whether this has come into legislation. I believe it hasn't passed yet, but I will check, where office staff will be able to say they want to work from home 2 days a week and the employer won't be able to say no to that,
yeah,
which is
yeah. I saw that.
bonkers. I've got clients in Victoria who are very unhappy about that because they've got a very much in-office culture. So, there's a few of those things floating around. The Commission is definitely going to be looking at work from home arrangements for employees covered by the Clerks Private Sector Award. That is on their agenda and they're actively looking at that. The Commission is also looking at a whole range of other things. But, if you're seeing advertising to say, that there's these new things coming, you think, hold on, hasn't that been in place for a while? You're probably right. There is a lot of scaremongering. And I think it's important to know what changes are coming and to make sure your
Yep.
business is compliant. But these 1st of July changes are important, but they're not as earth-shattering as we've seen for the last couple of years.
No, no, it's that's right. Now you've got your annual compliance webinar coming up. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So every single year, I run a free webinar to let everyone know about what's happening on the 1st of July, how to get their business ready, what they need in place, and just to help everyone make sure they are protected. And this year, of course, is no different. This is my most popular webinar that I run every year. We had about 400 people join us last year. So if you want to get a free seat to that, we're running it on the 23rd of June, 12 p.m. Sydney time. No replay, you've got to be there live. But you can just head over to peoplepoweredbusiness.com.au. We've got a button right there on the homepage, so you can't miss it. And you'll be able to just grab your seat and join me on the 23rd of June, where I'll just walk you through everything you need to know to be ready.
Awesome. Anything else?
I feel like that's it from a HR perspective, but I do, want to acknowledge that this particular end of financial year feels tougher than most from, I
Yep.
think, all the small business owners that I'm talking to. They're just, I think the uncertainty in the world, the budget recently, I won't get ranty again, just the
And so
constant
it's, yeah,
pressure.
and we're seeing some of our favorite businesses locally in trouble as well.
Yeah, we saw, and I think we can say this because they've put it publicly on their social media, a business locally to us who is in the hospitality industry has gone into voluntary administration. They're a popular venue, like a super popular venue,
Yep.
well loved, great business,
Great beer.
so great beer. So we're seeing it happen to businesses, and it's really, I think, sad. And I think we need to do more to advocate for small business for small businesses generally, because right now it feels like, it's coming at us from all angles. So if you're
That's right.
feeling stressed and overwhelmed, you're not alone. if you're
No.
feeling stressed and overwhelmed, what I'd love you to do is join the waitlist for the Australian Small
Oh,
Business Club.
nice.
Little segue there,
Nice
which you can
segue.
do over at the australiansmallbusinessshow.com.au. We are going to be opening that club in a few weeks, and it is purely a space to connect and have a
Yep.
community of other business owners. And being alone right now in business is not a great place to be.
No.
So the club will be the place for you. So go over and join the waitlist if you'd like to do that.
Awesome. Thanks, Christy.
All right. Thanks, Matt.